This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and it's Smackdown time. This time we have the 2016 Razer Blade 14-inch gaming laptop, and here we have the MSI GS40 Phantom, also a 14-inch gaming laptop. You folks asked for this, and we had already returned our MSI GS40 review loaner, so MSI was kind enough to get us the unit back again so we could do this Smackdown and compare these two together. Now, a lot is the same on these. They're both 14-inch thin and light laptops. They both have Intel 6th generation Skylake quad-core i7 CPUs, specifically the 6700 HQ CPU. They both have 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM. They both have NVIDIA GTX 970M graphics. The Razer Blade has 6 gigs of DDR5 VRAM versus 3 gigs on the MSI. I'm not sure how much that's really going to matter because the 970M is best paired with 1080 setting for game resolution anyway, and you generally need more video RAM when you're gaming at even higher resolutions. But still, there are some piggish games like GTA 5 that would like to have some more. Obviously, they have the basics. They both have killer Wi-Fi, 802.11ac. They have Bluetooth. They have stereo speakers. They have backlit keyboards. But there's a lot that sets them apart, including $400 for the price tag. The MSI list price is $1599. The new 2016 Razer Blade is $1999 starting price. So we're going to find out why those differences might be there and if it's worth it to you to spend the extra money. We're going to look at them now. Let's start with displays. Both of them are 14 inches, but that's where the similarity ends. The MSI GS40 has a matte 1920 by 1080 full HD display that does not support touch. That's the only screen option, which is pretty unusual because usually MSI has a bazillion different versions for any given laptop with mix and match kind of specs. In this case, the GS40 is pretty much, it's just one SKU, one build. The 2016 Razer Blade has a QHD Plus 3200 by 1800 glossy touchscreen. So if you like or you hate glossy screens, there's one decision point right there. Matte on the MSI, glossy on the Razer Blade. The Razer Blade does support touch, which is pleasant for Windows 10. That added resolution could be a headache for older games, but most reasonably current games these days, even some older ones like Mass Effect, now work on high-resolution displays. Steam, Origin, Uplay, they've all done a good job of helping to support that. The high resolution isn't something that's really going to be useful for gaming, though. The 970M is a very strong GPU, but it's not strong enough to run at 4K. Sometimes you can run 2K resolutions, though, on these, so it could potentially, if you want to push it a little bit, get you a little extra resolution in gaming there. But given the fact that both of these are probably going to be used as business and work machines too, the reason you want a 14-inch portable is because you're going to take it around, probably do some work, and you want to be able to game as well. It really starts to shine if you're doing photo, video, editing, that sort of thing. Any kind of design and content creation, this higher resolution display is going to, well, be more useful, sharper, all that sort of thing. Don't have to zoom in as much on your photos and videos that you're editing. Also, it has higher color gamut, and you can see that there. There's more pop here, certainly with this, and it has higher color saturation. Now, the MSI is not bad. It does 91% of sRGB, whereas the Razer Blade slightly exceeds the full sRGB color gamut. Contrast on either of these is not super high. It's not a selling point, let's put it that way. And even though the MSI does have a bit higher contrast, you wouldn't guess it because the glossy display actually makes for a more contrasty look. So they're kind of on par there. But overall, obviously, the Razer Blade has the more expensive, higher color gamut touch display. It's going to win this point. And while we have them open, let's continue down to the keyboards. Now, the MSI has a Steel Series keyboard, and I tend to like MSI's smaller gaming laptops better when it comes to keyboard. Keys are more crisp, travel is good. We don't have the number pad here on this one. It's just simply too small, but that's good because it doesn't create the elongated design that we see on something like the GS60 Ghost Pro. Anyway, the keyboard, I like it. It's single color, backlit, but it's a pleasant experience to type on. You can't do any of those fancy chroma things like you can on the Razer Blade, but, well, you know, there's a price difference too. The trackpad, the buttonless trackpad, it's a horror. You know, I've never said good things about MSI trackpads, and I own an MSI GT72 Dominator Pro, so it's not that I don't like MSI, but I do avoid the trackpad because, especially if you're navigating the file system, it's so possessed by demons that God only knows what it's going to do with your files. Okay, it's not that bad on the Phantom. On some of the other models, like the Dominator, it is, but it's not a very good trackpad, and the clicking is very stiff, which is unusual for a buttonless trackpad. So keyboard good, trackpad, oof. Now on the Razer Blade we have the Chroma keyboard. You've got infinitely programmable RGB backlit. It comes with a bunch of preset ones. Right now it's going to cycle through several different colors every so often. There's fireworks, there's twilight, starlight effects, you name it. Customize the WASD key backlighting, do macros, all sorts of good stuff like that. So fancy pants keyboard, a little bit shorter on travel, but it's still a very good keyboard to type on. I really like typing on it. Once you get used to the shorter travel on this, it's very crisp and precise feeling. The trackpad is wonderful on this. It is predictable, it is reliable, it will not accidentally throw your files in the trash when you're using Explorer. And we actually have buttons, and they're nice soft touch buttons. They're kind of just right. They're not those super stiff ones where you press so hard you accidentally move your finger when you didn't want to, but they're not so soft that you accidentally press them. So Razer is going to win this point hands down. And flanking the keyboard are stereo speakers, a very intelligent placement, facing at you, not firing at the desk. These are really very good speakers for a 14-inch laptop, pretty full, loud, and rich. If you leave it playing a movie in another room, somebody else in your house might think, who's talking? It sounds pretty realistic. It's pretty good stuff. MSI usually has good speakers in their laptops, but clearly the 14-inch size, well, they just didn't have enough room for the drivers and their usual engineering thing. It's pretty thin and tinny, the MSI GS40 audio. That's what external speakers are for, or headphones. Build quality, materials, design, here's where we're going to see a big difference. Now, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so you may have a different opinion than I do. And, you know, I don't mind the MSI look that much, but some people think it's a little too boy racer. Some people think it looks a little too cheap and cheesy. I think it's not bad looking. This is brushed aluminum. It is very thin. You do get the, if you think the Razer logo is ostentatious, you do get this faux Ferrari kind of dragon thing that MSI uses. It's a little bit bigger footprint. It's not bad looking. It is thicker. It is significantly thicker actually than the Razer Blade. The Razer Blade is made aluminum unibody, top, bottom, every which way. It's a lot more rigid. We'd expect that for something that's more expensive. It looks sort of like a black MacBook Pro, doesn't it? It's a clean design, it's modern, it's minimalist. Other than this logo, which you can put a decal over if you need to hide it. You could take this to work. The MSI is a little bit more out there, but not so crazy, I suppose, really. And on the bottom for the MSI, we have plastic, and the Razer is metal everywhere. Nice and rigid, so here's what they look like on the underside. A lot more vent action going on the MSI, but we're going to show you later that it's still the hotter running laptop. They both have dual fan designs, one fan for the GPU, one for the CPU here. So this is plastic, but with the MSI, particularly given the high surface temperatures on the bottom, that's probably a good thing because metal would feel even more conductive and hot to the touch. You don't want to burn yourself, do you? Now, neither of these has particularly flexible chassis, as you would hope and expect from machines in this price range. The lid on the MSI GS40 is very flexy, and that's not just a price issue there, I don't think. It's because they were trying to make it so darn light, and it's not unusual for super light laptops to have flexible display panels here. And this is a half a pound lighter. Keep in mind, 3.75 pounds versus 4.25 pounds for the Razer. So here, if we do this, that spooks some people. And if you press over here, look at the amount of deforming we can do right here, right? I mean, it's designed to bend without breaking, but this could creep some people out. 2016 Razer Blade, like, well, the 2015 and the 2014 Razer Blade, it's built like a super slim tank. It really is, again, like a MacBook. This is about as much torsioning as you can do, and it takes a lot more effort to do that. If I press here, nothing is going to give way, really, in a considerable fashion like it does on the MSI. So solid, rigid, dense, the kind of thing you don't want to drop on your foot is the impression that you get. Whereas with the MSI, you're afraid to drop it because it might break. I think the Razer would probably hurt you if it hit you. By the way, both of these are fingerprint magnets, so they clean up with damp cloths. I use a little soft soap on the damp cloth and then dry them off, and they clean up. But if you're a tidy type, you'll be driven crazy by either of these. You can see the difference in thickness here. The Razer blade is continuous thickness throughout versus the MSI getting a little thicker at the back. But the MSI wins big time on ports here. Now, they both have USB-C/Thunderbolt 3, so they're on par there. If you want to use the Razer Core, you'll probably have an easier time with the Razer blade because it's been a challenge so far to get all the drivers and everything working with other brand laptops. But honestly, with the NVIDIA 970M, I don't see a huge motivation right now unless you want to play VR games specifically, because the 970M has enough horsepower to play games well enough. Anyway, back on topic. 2 USB 3.0 ports there. The Razer blade has a total of 3 USB 3.0 ports. It has a headphone jack combo mic jack, the usual 3.5 millimeter that does both. Whereas MSI gives you separate headphone and mic inputs. That's either a blessing or a curse. It really depends on which headphones you're using and so on. If you don't have headphones that have a splitter, then you won't like it. If you do have headphones that have a splitter, well, you're going to like it. SD card slot here. Hey, no, Razer blade doesn't have that either. Ethernet. Wow, pretty impressive for something that has so much crammed inside in terms of CPU and GPU, and they actually managed to fit that in as well. And there's one of its 2 USB 3.0 ports, so it actually has one less USB port. I'm not sure that that's really going to be a deal breaker for folks. And on this side, you can see the Thunderbolt 3/USB-C port on both of these. That's the smallest of the ports that you can see there. Also, most leftward, USB regular port, otherwise known as 3.0, and HDMI full size. And the MSI also has a mini display port, and that is on the back edge. So for ports is king type folks who need to plug in a lot of stuff and you don't want to get a USB-C or Thunderbolt 3 dock, the MSI wins this point. Okay, so both of these run on essentially the same CPU, the same GPU. They both have 16 gigs of RAM out of the factory. So what are the differences? We're looking at the Razer blade internals here, and both of these will have dual fan designs. That's standard, one for the CPU, one for the GPU. And you can see here we have the M2 SSD slot for PCIe SSDs. We have the socketed Wi-Fi card. It's a good killer card. You're probably not going to want to replace that. RAM is soldered on. Now, you do get 16 gigs with DDR4 RAM, which is enough for most people, but I know there's always somebody out there who says, I need more, I need more. Well, if you need more than 16 gigs, this, like many other laptops, isn't the laptop for you. Now we're going to look at the MSI, which is quite impressive inside. And here's the MSI internals. As always, a marvel of engineering. They are good at this, the folks at MSI. Not only do we have an M2 SSD slot, we have a 2.5-inch drive bay. So typically this ships with a 128 gig SSD and a terabyte hard drive, spinning conventional, slow, hard drive, but lots of storage space. Whereas the Razer blade ships with your choice of a 256 gig or 512 gig SSD drive. So different architecturally there. If you actually want that secondary drive bay, and you could put a 2.5-inch SSD in there to speed things up, well, you can do that here. And we actually have 2 RAM slots. So if you wanted to go up to 32 gigs, you could here. Well, that's a pretty neat and rare thing in a laptop this size, performance laptop or not. The one thing that is not accessible is easily accessible is the Wi-Fi card, which is actually hidden on the other side of the motherboard. But it's a good killer networking card, and I don't think you're going to want to upgrade that anyway. All right, so the MSI GS40 has been running Metro last light, apologies for the kind of dark scene here, for about 15 minutes in a room that's 75 to 76 degrees Fahrenheit, and the laptop is sitting on a nice hard surface, so it's not being muffled or blocked in any way, but we don't have a laptop cooler on it either. Thermal imaging accessory you can get for iOS and Android devices. Right now we're using it with an iPhone to see what the temperatures are, and the screen is measuring around 100 degrees, and that's fine. But let's look at the bottom of this, and right near the front edge of the keyboard, it's pretty chilling, 88 degrees there. And let's go down. The hot spots are going to be the red and white looking ones, 152 degrees. Over here, 133, 4, 5 degrees. And over there, 158 degrees by the back vents. So keep that away from your legs. That's the price you pay for these skinny gaming laptops. All right, so now we have the 2016 Razer Blade here, and it's running Far Cry 4 at the moment, an equally demanding game. And we've had it running for the same amount of time in the same room, and we're going to see how the bottom temperature measures, again, using our FLIR One. It's worth noting that the fan is not as annoying and grating. It's loud on this too, but it's not as high pitched. So the screen temperature, not really doesn't matter. We can get about the same. Let's look at the underside. All right, so here we are on the underside, the front edge closest to you if you're using the laptop, always the coolest because there's not much in the way of CPU or GPU or anything there. It's pretty much a battery. And it's actually a little bit warmer than the MSI GS40. It's about human body temperature, a little bit below. So that wouldn't be uncomfortable, but it would be noticeably warm. Let's go down to the heat zones and see. And you can see where the hot spots are by the color changing to the bright white and bright yellows. 129, 130 there in the center, going down to 121 over here. All these are in Fahrenheit. This fan surprisingly low at 92, probably not using the CPU much. Let's go on the other side. And we're really pretty chill in there, right around human body temperature. So the hot spot would be in the dead center. This is significantly cooler than the MSI GS40 Phantom. Impressive. Battery life. Razer Blade wins by a significant margin for doing productivity work and some photo editing, that sort of thing, not playing games or editing and exporting 1080p or 4K video, which is going to be a lot more demanding, and battery life will be shorter. But for productivity work on the road, that sort of thing, 6 hours for the Razer Blade. And I've even managed more. I use MS Edge for my web browser instead of Chrome, get a lot more gas mileage, so to speak, better battery life there. 4 hours for the MSI GS40 Phantom, so that's a significant difference. Chargers. Now this is actually the MSI charger here, even though it's sitting on top of our friend the Razer Blade. The Razer Blade charger has a Razer logo. Look how much smaller it is. Look how much lighter it is. That's more portable. Score more big portability points there for Razer. But even more so, this is a 165 watt charger, which is really what you need if you want to charge this laptop with the Core i7 quad core and the 970M while doing something demanding like gaming without seeing the battery charge actually go down. MSI consistently supplies on chargers, not for every single model, but they've done it here. And the first time we reviewed it, it came with a 150 watt charger. It really should be 165. This one here that they sent us this time is 120 watts. So this is actually going to drain while playing games, even if you're plugged into AC. So for both battery life and for the charger, in terms of output and size and portability, Razer wins this point. So there you have it, 2016 Razer Blade versus the MSI GS40 Phantom. Either way, you're getting a really fine gaming laptop, one that's going to be kind of hot and loud when you're actually gaming. That's the price we pay for these small, thin, and light laptops with pretty powerful graphics inside. You can see why the price difference exists to a certain extent here in terms of the screen that you're getting, build rigidity, and even the charger, the difference in the wattage and the compactness of the charger, the full RGB backlit chroma keyboard here versus the SteelSeries, which is an excellent keyboard to type on, but single color backlit keyboard. And then there's even a heat and thermal difference, build quality differences too. But still, you know, if you need to save money, and both of these are kind of expensive, understandably, you get a lot of engineering and a lot of technology. You get things like more ports in the MSI GS40, so that's pretty darn captivating, and an extra drive bay. Actually, somehow they found room for that 2.5-inch drive bay. So it's not cut and dry, is it? It really depends on which features are more important to you and how you feel about build quality versus saving some extra weight and saving some extra bucks. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to watch our video reviews of each of these laptops, read our written reviews, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos.